Hey buds, and welcome to me reacting to my Minecraft predictions because I just saw the movie. And if you want to know like my thoughts right after it, because I'm not going to go too much into depth on like how I'm feeling right now or anything, but you can check out that video here because I am so excited and I want to know how much stuff I actually got right about the movie. Like, I know kind of what I said, but there are some things I actually want to talk about, so let's get into it. This movie's gonna start. We are going to see Henry, our main character in the movie, be an outcast at school. He was bullied by kids when he built a jetpack. Not really making any friends because it's not that type of environment. Now, we did see that his sister Natalie is going to be driving and they look like they're all packed up and ready to go. So maybe they're not in the best parental situation. That's why it's just Natalie and Henry. Or maybe their parents even died, but we're gonna go with the less grim of those. It's not the less grim of those two. So they had a mom, it seems that there was a one parent type of parental situation. The mom actually passed away. And that's like a like minor point in the movie, but also like a major one. It's kind of weird. I say more of it in the video that I mentioned before. This is something that I think that they should have gone into depth a lot more on. But I did get it right. The mom did die because it is the only way that I think that someone would let their kids go off and like adventure. Even I said kids, but Natalie's like what, in her 20s? Something like that, okay? But let's see what else. Henry's busy at home though, building up all of the creations that he's been. Yeah, this is when Henry is building up his jetpack. And he decides to take his creations to Garrett's story. So it's not actually his creations. I thought that that thing that he was holding was like a tray of like spare parts or something. That's actually a tater tot pizza casserole. And he gives it like, what gives it? I guess Garrett kind of like rips it open and like says like, leave it here, I'll eat it. And it's supposed to like help him make friends. It's something that his mom like used to like make all the time, like her recipe, but Natalie actually made it. And it's supposed to help like at school and everything. On the way biking to school, he passes by and it's like, whoa, this place is kind of cool. Let me go in here. So it's not that he was like just doing his own thing. This was a total side quest. While Henry's at Garrett's shop, they find the orb and connect it together. So the orb actually got put there in one of the earlier like scene things. Garrett goes to like this fanboy of his that is trying to like sell like storage crates, and they're being auctioned off. So for $900, he was trying to get a like storage thing that had like some type of Atari thing, older than me, I don't know. When he's searching through stuff like, why is there nothing good here? He stumbled upon, boop, you guessed it, the Earth Crystal. And then he put it in the shop, and this was in the bag with a weird warning label. Now, how Dawn and Natalie are gonna actually get here, because once you like click the blocks together, I don't know if it's like a locator beacon that'll be like, go here and we'll take you to a portal, or if it's just like, whoop, whoop. I'm in Minecraft. Okay, so it's actually not like an instant teleport. It like vibrated in Henry's hand and then he like started walking, and Natalie was like at home, and Dawn is actually like the realtor person that got them like the cheapest house that they could afford in the neighborhood. Natalie's freaking out like, I didn't know who else to call. I don't know anyone else, so I called you. Dawn manages to get a hold of Henry over the phone. They're like, oh yeah, he's heading to an abandoned mine shaft. Let's go follow him. We'll get him easy. So that's how they all group up, and in the mine is actually where like the real life portal is, which is so freaking sick. They enter the portal very aggressively, and they end up in the world of Minecraft. Yep. Obviously, they're going to be in shock, and that shock is only going to be elevated when night falls incredibly quickly. Okay, so they weren't actually in shock. Well, it was confusing, but if I was teleported to another realm, I think that's what I was getting at here, where I was like, I'm going to be freaking out. But they just talked with the sheep. They just had a lovely little day. Garrett asked them for some gold, and then all hell broke loose. Bunch of mobs are gonna start spawning in, and Henry, being the creative that he is going to catch on to building really, really quickly. He ran into a tree. Henry will try to build them a quick main shack to defend themselves, but then a creeper will blow it up. The creeper, it got ignited by a flame arrow that these guys were shooting. And Garrett was outside, and the whole like point of the movie why they couldn't just return back to Earth was because this cube actually has like an outside thing around it. And so now they're like, oh crap, we need to find like a replacement or something. We can't go back, the portal closed. So, but they are continuing to run, and it's really chaotic. Just as quickly as it started, the night ends. Now that they're in the middle of who knows where, they give a look around and see some.
This I was kind of just talking out my bum here. I didn't really know how they were going to find Steve, but Steve is actually the one that like saves them because they're on top of their like structure house thing that they made, and he comes in with a sword and like starts shanking zombies, and it's like a really cool like dance party battle thing, and then it's like, yeah, I am Steve. That's kind of what happens. So this next section where I kind of like talk about like, oh, they met Steve at a village and this and that, kind of off.
As they're on the outskirts of town, this is when a strange man calls out to them.
Yeah, right here is where they're actually on top of that starter house and all the zombies are burning up right next to him. So no, I wasn't right about that. I was wrong. They didn't just stumble upon it. But this was super freaking cool to see.
Explaining how the villagers work, explaining iron golems, explaining how to get food, the whole shebang. And this is probably when they'll realize that he's actually from the real world. Most likely.
Actually, no. I don't think in the movie a single time that they ever mention like, wait, you're from our world, like you're us? Cause like, obviously he doesn't fit in. So they kind of just glaze over that, which I kind of like. It's kind of overdone a lot. Like, you're from the same dimension? But I do have to say, a lot of this is pretty much correct. And like Steve taking everyone around, not to mention the epic song that he does of lava chicken. That was really awesome. But this was pretty spot on.
Garrett wants to be the head honcho and wants to be cool in front of everyone, so he wants to seem like he knows how to do everything. Yeah. And since Steve and Henry are so excited, Steve takes both of them into his workshop to show them how things are made here. And that's when Steve makes his stone.
Okay. Steve and Henry didn't bond as much as I thought they were going to initially. Like, they bonded, of course, because like it's a whole movie and there's like character development and stuff. But I honestly feel like the character development was like sidelined. I don't think that it hurt the movie because it was still just like a fun Minecraft movie. But I feel like it's something that they probably would have wanted to go a little bit more in depth with. But unfortunately, no, Henry and Steve, like they have a close relationship, but it's not as close as what I was thinking.
And trying to figure out how the world works without Steve's help. And that is when the worst thing imaginable could happen.
They didn't actually do much exploring, like on their own, of how things work. I feel like Henry did to a certain extent, but there wasn't a lot of like go through the mechanics and everything like that because the Minecraft's the most popular game in the world, guys. Everybody knows the mechanics. Everybody knows, oh, I mine, I craft, I this and that. So it did feel a little redundant if they would have started going over that, which I think that it's good that they didn't, and I'm glad that I was wrong about that.
Pigmen attack. Garrett uses his buckchucks to fight off the pigmen.
Yeah, he fails. He fails miserably. He knocks Steve out, actually. And then he gets demolished by General Chungus. And yes, that is the real name of that pigman. He's a goat, though. We love him. He's a little zesty. He's great. This whole next section that I'm about to get into is like Natalie and Dawn like go and they're on the water. They build a boat and they go. They actually don't. They take their hose and shovel that they picked up and they literally just like book it in a straight direction. And by the time we come back to them, it's nighttime already. So like we don't know where they are. They're in the middle of the forest and there's like a zombie behind them. And that's when Natalie's kind of giving her character like exposition, and Dawn is relatable with saying like adulting sucks, or like money. So this next part where I talk about like the boats and everything is just entirely false, but I kind of knew that going into it because we did not see a lot of like either of these two in the actual like trailers. It was a lot of Steve, Garrett, and Henry.
Dawn helps by kicking this table with the help of Natalie.
So that table was actually, they were trying to get a map to the Woodland Mansion, which I find is really, really funny how 1.21.5 just came out and they have that feature now with their cartographers. But these villagers were like clearly supposed to just be like shady dude bros and everything. And it was just really funny just watching this whole interaction go down. One of them died, one of the villagers, they died, and it was just like, oh.
The guys will use elytras to fly away but be chased by the ghasts. And the girl.
Okay, so Steve actually didn't bring an elytra. He thought that he had 3 on him, but he didn't. So he was kind of like riding, like holding on to Garrett's hair and like going. There's a whole funny sequence that I like really don't want to spoil for you guys because that was honestly like super funny. Let's just say there was some memeable whole action. But it was really funny to see like Steve riding on Jason Momoa. Because there's probably fanfics out there that are a lot more graphic than what we saw on screen. Yeah,
after
this was pretty cool.
Landing, Steve, Henry, and Garrett are all by the pandas in the jungle biome. And this is where Steve's going to explain how he knows of the pigmen.
So this was actually shown off like in the very early bits of the movie. Like the movie starts off like Steve's explaining like, when I was a child, I yearned for the mines and stuff like that. So this was all like a flashback that like it happened before the movie even started. Doesn't go into depth on it really, just kind of says like, oh yeah, that's the pigmen. Netherwort will start like growing everywhere if they get in touch of like the orb crystal thing. Like hoping that he would go more in depth on it, but I'm really glad that they didn't. Because it's kind of one of those things like a Disney movie, you know, like Disney movies, they talk about like things where it's like, yeah, no freaking kidding. We both have that one random streak of white hair. Of course we're related somehow. So I'm glad that they didn't do that. Like they valued like me not being stupid.
And went into the Nether.
The Nether.
There he saw pigmen, and since the Minecraft store has actually made merch for the movie, and it says we humbly seek gold, I'm going to assume that they don't like Steve just because he asked for their most valuable resource.
So I'm actually wrong on that. They didn't, like Steve didn't ask personally for gold. Didn't ask at all for gold actually. It was actually Garrett that asked the pink sheep when they got to Minecraft. They were like, we humbly seek gold. So that has nothing to do with the pigmen. Oh my God, what's her name right now? Malgosha. Yeah, they go into it. So there was like a thing where like the pigmen were dancing and stuff, and that was kind of like her backstory. In like one of the trailers and in the movie, they go into it. Interesting to kind of like see like, oh, this one person couldn't be creative, and now it's everyone else's problem in this totally different dimension, which is super cool. It was like very streamlined, kickstart, get you in there, going great.
So they have made a personal vendetta against anybody who walks through that portal. Because they think that everybody from the overworld wants their gold.
Not
and
at all.
This point, the guys head into this old mine shaft to get things like diamonds and iron.
Okay. They don't go in there to get things like diamond and iron. They go in here because they're trying to get over the mountains to the Woodland Mansion, where they're gonna find an earth crystal. And this is actually just because Garrett was like, let's go fastest. And you know, Steve was like, okay, we gotta go through. And there was a whole traps that went off and everything. And they stumbled upon them. And Garrett was like, oh, mine, because I'm struggling and I need money to keep myself afloat and everything. So no, they actually weren't gearing up. I thought that this was going to be like the basic like mining away. It's not.
While walking in, Garrett sets off
and these are the traps I was just talking about.
Creepers from this old abandoned creeper farm.
Okay. This was a creeper farm. They even joke about it, like, who would make that? Kind of like poking fun at like the bigger like redstone creations that people can make. But they're also running from one of the big baddies here. And this was a very, very funny scene. But when you see like the big baddie, you're like, oh my God, if you played the Minecraft like movie event, you're like, that's the Great Hog. Like it makes sense if you've played like everything else up to now.
Since we haven't seen a lot of Dawn and Natalie in the trailer, this is where I'm going to say that a magical wandering trader spawns in. And no, I don't mean magical. I mean, this guy just pops in out of nowhere and wants to give them stuff. And on this wandering trader's expedition around the world, he would have seen the guys and decides to lead the girls back to them.
Okay, I'm actually glad that this didn't happen also. Everything that I predicted, now I'm like, that makes so much like less sense than what actually happens in the movie. Actually, as they're like going through, like how I said they're like walking through like the forest at night and everything, it's actually Dennis, Steve's dog, that like pops out of nowhere. And Dawn, because she runs like a side gig of like animal petting zoo or whatever, is actually like, oh, it just needs a little TLC, and gives Dennis a bone, gets the collar back. And then she's like, oh my God, Dennis, like Steve's dog. And he actually takes them back to where Steve is because Dennis has the scent. I do think the wandering trader idea could have been good if they like didn't already introduce a bunch of wandering traders like throughout the village and everything. If they just had like one random one. But then again, people that don't play Minecraft wouldn't know like, what the heck's a wandering trader? Where did this guy come from? Like, so having a dog that like they've shown wandering around like throughout the movie was really good.
And this is where Steve decides that it's time to get the pillagers involved, hoping that they'll rally to the cause because everyone in the overworld is at risk. He heads out with the boys.
No, they went to the Woodland Mansion because they needed a replacement like earth crystal thing. The pillagers, you know, they never sought help. They never anything like that.
Again, to go to the Woodland Mansion nearby. But before they do that, they give all of the diamonds, redstone, iron, and some gunpowder that they found to both the girls. Which
this is actually, this is one thing that I think they could have done better, and you know, it makes a little bit longer of a runtime, but I wish that they kind of, Dawn was part of the movie more. I wish that Natalie was part of the movie more, like just them building or like learning how to do it, like kind of like a tutorial without being like a tutorial. Like, we're not stupid, we get it, but at the same time, like just have like a Minecraft, you know, like a basic thing, because during this time, Dawn is actually building up like a mushroom shack thing that we'll get into later. And it would have been so cool, like, to know more of their characters and stuff, like through just watching them build and talk and everything. But no, they don't actually build like anything on camera really, other than like Henry and like Steve's like montage and stuff.
Are now tasked with taking back those items and bringing them to the village with that wandering trader. Now, from Minecraft Live, we saw like a tiny bit of what this movie's actually going to hold in the form of this Bedrock Edition event that's coming out.
This was a total mislead.
Natalie is busy crafting diamond weapons.
Okay, they do prepare, but it's kind of like all of them together. So this, I guess, would happen a little bit after the next thing I'm gonna say, which is like kind of going into depth more on things like Garrett and Henry and Steve and everything. But this happens at the same time that they're all going through and building together.
While they're readying the village, though, the guys are in trouble.
Yeah, so them readying the village happens after.
Did not go as planned. Who would have guessed? And the boys have been captured.
Yep.
But Garrett's stepping up. He quickly gets his butt whooped, though, by this chain jockey, but somehow they managed to claw their way out of there. Now, whether or not they came to an agreement with these pillagers after fighting their way out, something I think that the pillagers would totally love, because you gotta remember, everything else is a pacifist to them, so they'd love to find someone else who'd be willing to fight, but without no—
Yeah, I would have liked a little bit about that, but I think that that's also just for me, like, being a huge villager nerd. Like, we're literally VillagerBudz, so it's kind of one of those, like, I'm in the niche of people that really like villagers, I feel. But it would have been cool to see, like, well, how did they turn into pillagers and illagers and evokers and stuff? Like, how did all of that happen? But it's not something that a Minecraft movie was ever going to talk about. That's why I'm not upset about it, because going into it, you gotta say, what is someone who has no knowledge of the game, what are they going to know? They're gonna know you gotta mine, you gotta craft, they're gonna know don't waste your diamonds on a hoe. So you gotta make it for like everybody. So I'm not upset at any of like not going into depth more, you know what I mean?
Found lying around in the mine shaft.
I do this for some reason.
Used. And since Garrett loves
new out, I don't even know why I did that.
He's going to blow this bridge up while Steve and Henry run away.
Big spoiler! That's actually a fake out death. Garrett actually like dies, like they don't know where he is. And Steve and Henry like take a nasty fall from like they're like hanging on one of the gases and everything, because Steve like put down like a slime block and jumped over, and the gas like takes a tumble, crash landing, and that's when they wake up in Dawn and Natalie's like makeshift shack that they had made in the mushroom. Garrett is like presumed dead at that point. Because there was a massive explosion, you know, you're not getting off that bridge and everything. We later realized, major spoiler here, we later realized though that he used Steve's like water bucket MLG like tactic to survive the fall and everything.
A massive portal spawns in directly in front of the village.
Okay, so it wasn't nighttime. Malgosia actually she's like over here somewhere. You can't see it in this frame, but up like right up above where you can see, there is like the little cube thing. It's like the cube of the orb of domination, and it's actually powering like eternal darkness. And that's why all the pigmen are coming out. Like they can actually like come out here without needing like potions and stuff.
And the pigmen overlord is leading the charge.
Yep.
Bringing the siege into the overworld. But Henry and Steve are taking matters into their own hand and bringing it to their home. Possibly by ender pearling straight into the portal or just sneaking in. They are now in the nether.
Okay, this is where I kind of go off the rails. They didn't go back into the nether because there's nothing in the nether really for them. It's just that thing at the very top. Henry actually pops a freaking ender pearl that he got from killing an enderman in the woodland mansion. He pops that bad boy in there and he shoots it in his tater tot gun and go boom, and it launches him all the way up. And that's when, you know, the epic fight happens. I'm not going to spoil all that. Insane how I thought that they were going to go into that. Looking back now, I'm like, no, why would they? That doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, I figured that the orb would like, or their power source for this would be like in the nether somewhere. But no, I was wrong about that.
Garrett will remain in the overworld fighting with his buck chuck.
Oh, I was wrong. Okay, so at that point, Garrett's presumed dead. So a little bit off. You know, some stuff happens and, you know, you realize Garrett is actually not dead. He like swoops in to save Henry at the last second on a ghast, no less, like flying on a freaking ghast. It's so sick.
And something that I just thought of right now, wouldn't these pigmen turn into zombified pigmen? Leave your theories in the comments, because
okay, this is actually something I was thinking about in the theater, like right before it actually happened. You know, I was like, wouldn't these guys, if they come out here, wouldn't they be turned into zombified pigmen? And it actually happened in the movie, and they made like a regeneration nether wart potion. They were kind of, you know, like how priests like flick the holy water at you and stuff. That's kind of what these like baby dudes were doing. They're like, drink a little bit of the potion, but not too much. We don't have that much. And so that's why.
And this is when Steve is going to sacrifice himself.
No.
Henry and Steve.
Surprisingly, Steve doesn't. I know that there were a lot of other people online, like Steve's gonna sacrifice himself and Totem of Undying and this and that and this. And I even go into depth on some of this. Like most of this next bit is me talking about how Steve like has a Totem of Undying and how Henry crafted it and stuff. That's just not the case. Steve is fighting Malgosha and, you know, he's smart. He knows, like, he's used to this by now, you know?
Turns out that when they were in the Woodland Mansion earlier, Henry was actually building things for the pillagers. And he created this thing called the Totem of Undying.
Okay, looking back now, it seems a little goofy I thought all this. I'm not gonna be like lying to you guys. Do I think that mine might have been better? Let's leave it up for the internet to decide. However, they did show this in the movie. They did show it in like a secret little loot chest at the very beginning in Steve's stash. In Steve's stash. Why can't I say that? And this did make an appearance, but it was never actually used. I don't know if it's because it was too predictable or what, but there was no fake out death other than like Garrett's. But I think that this is like a really good like fan theory. Like before it came out and everything, like I feel like we were all kind of gravitating towards that. And I feel like that's so good where people like, we play the game so much that we're like, oh, this is what I do. Why will like Steve's been here long enough. Steve's been to a Woodland Mansion. Like how would I think in that situation, going there and like knowing about this and then going into like a boss? Like obviously you bring your best loot, you know? So I don't think we were that far with this, but we were wrong, unfortunately.
Like theory for this that I'm not actually going to like say will happen in the movie is that Garrett actually took a Totem of Undying with him from Steve's shop earlier, and Garrett wanting to do things on his own was just like, yeah, I've got this, I can totally do this, and he ends up sacrificing himself in some way, and then the totem activates, and he's like, yeah, I did it, I solved it, but I'm gonna say that Steve is probably going to be the main focus instead of Garrett sacrificing.
I might have been on to something. Garrett did kind of sacrifice himself. It was in an earlier thing, but like, and that's the reason why I wanted to add this in. I almost like, I was thinking about it and I'm like, I should just get rid of this in the video. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm like, well, it's an alternate like climax, like alternate, like final, like who's gonna die? And I'm honestly glad that I kept that in because that's like even closer to what happened. And I hadn't heard anyone talk about this or anything even remotely like it.
We're gonna just ignore that like Garrett sacrifice.
Yeah, we'll just ignore it. That was the closer of the two.
We're gonna stick with this Steve sacrifice. They kill the nether baddie and allow all of the nether to think creatively again. With that,
the nether baddie actually just gets zombified and slowly dies. And this dancing pigman is actually her when she was younger. It's like a backstory. I feel bad for her. I kind of like wish that she got like some sort of like make it better and stuff. She doesn't, but at the same time, like it's a pigman. Like I kill these dudes all the time.
A return to the village where they're celebrated as heroes.
They're not actually.
Now that
they just kind of like teleport like straight from the battlefield to like walking home. And the villagers are just there. They're just following them.
Has everything he needs to take on the hardships of reality inside of him. They decide it's time for them to go home, knowing that the lands of Minecraft are no longer going to be threatened by pigmen. And Steve couldn't agree with Henry's mindset more. All four of them were—
Okay, Steve doesn't actually like fully agree. It's actually Natalie that encourages him because at the beginning of the movie she's like, well, he gets bullied and this and that and they don't like creatives in the real world and it's gonna like kill the creativity and stuff. And that kind of like draws like a little bit of a divide between like the characters and stuff. But it's actually Natalie saying and like encouraging it kind of in Steve, where before she was telling him like about Henry, like, no, we can't do that. So it was kind of nice to see that. Like, and I wish that there was a little bit more character interaction through things like that, but it was still very, very nice.
Our heroes will now live out their lives with brand new confidence.
Yep.
Steve will feel the same and will travel back to the overworld with our four
he does
main
go back to the real world.
And they'll probably be returning to Jennifer Coolidge marrying a villager.
And that's what happened. That's the craziest goddamn part. Stay for the mid-credits, stay for the after-credits, stay for everything. It was honestly really funny though. Like, it was like stitched in perfectly with the movie, like give some breaks and it was really fun. It was just fun.
Our heroes will now continue their lives in the real world with newfound confidence.
They do.
Garrett won't be living in the past anymore.
He does not.
Given Henry and Natalie's situation with their parents, Natalie will feel like an excellent older sister finally beating imposter syndrome.
That's exactly what happens.
Henry won't feel like such an outcast anymore because he knows that there's actually a place for him. And given the extremely close relationship that Steve and Henry are going to have by the end of this movie, I honestly think that Steve is either going to try to adopt both of them or just simply become a new father-like figure for them.
Okay, no, there's a lot of yeahs. This one's a no. Does not try to adopt them, because that would be really quick. They don't really interact that much. Like, they talk, but it's all for like a main goal, you know?
She probably feels great in whatever she's doing because now she has mastered redstone in Minecraft, and that alone is an amazing feat.
Dawn kind of like did everything though. She built, she did redstone, she animal handling. So spoiler, Steve actually lets her keep Dennis and bring Dennis to like the overworld. God, to the real world. Why do I keep saying the overworld? This is my overworld, guys. And he actually lets her keep Dennis and she brings him back with her to the real world. And they have like a petting zoo and stuff. It's really fun. Not really redstone mastery, but close enough.
The Minecraft movie will end with Creeper. Oh man, and
it didn't, but that would have been freaking cool. Sadly it didn't, but
the theater will go wild. Yeah. I know that I'm gonna go wild. I don't know about the rest of the theater, but that is what I think is going to happen from the little that we've seen.
Okay, I have a funny story that literally just happened like an hour and a half ago. At one point when they're all saying goodbye, there's like a song that goes, and of course Jack Black is singing it, and literally at the end of the song, everybody in the theater just started clapping at it and was like, woo! It was really funny. And then all you could hear, like, I don't know where it was in the theater, it was somewhere to my right and like down in front. It was like, contacting emergency services. And we're like, so I don't know if we set off someone's like Apple Watch or whatever, but that was freaking like, that was the core memory
of trailer. And if you disagree with anything that I think is going to go,
I disagree.
I just said, then please do let me know. I am
letting you know. That's why I'm making this video, because I wanted to see if I could predict the Minecraft movie before it came out, which I kind of did, but I kind of didn't. It's like a weird mix of I'm right, but I'm also wrong. I feel like it was an awesome, excellent movie. Overall, yes, there are some things I'd tweak about it because nothing is like perfect, but at the end of the day, this is something I am going to be as big of a mark as like Minecraft's already left on me. This has just drilled that idea of like Minecraft into my brain even more. And I'm so glad I got a chance to do this. I'm so glad I got to see the movie a day early. By the time you guys are seeing this, I don't know how many days have like gone by. I don't know, maybe this comes out on the 5th, maybe the 7th, I don't know. I'm obviously gonna try to get videos out as like soon as possible when it comes to things like me talking about the Minecraft movie, but yeah, I am the only one editing these videos, so unfortunately that is going to do it. But anyways, buds, if you want to see my genuine reaction and like first time viewing and going to the theater and everything, check this video out right here, because that's like literally my raw thoughts at like the very beginning. I also showcased this guy a lot more. But yes, buds, remember to join the village today, because it's only a click away. I got popcorn all on my teeth now, but thank you so much, members. I love it, the Happy Tree Hugger, and Kinboshi.